Immortal is a fraud. That's what I've been hearing online for a while now. He's a fraud. He can't even beat one guy. He's lost every fight he's been in. I have heard these accusations a ridiculous amount of times online. And I'm here to tell you why Immortal is definitely not a fraud. Something people sometimes fail to understand is that Immortal is not a Viltrumite. He's just a human with superpowers. There's a difference between a human mutant and a high ranked Viltrumite warrior. Immortal is just a dude who's more used to basic mindless kaijus, not superhumans with the ability to reinforce their very atoms to the point of being nearly indestructible. And something some people don't point out is that in his fight with Omni Man, whilst he was quickly defeated, he he did land some pretty good hits on Omni Man, and I don't see it being talked about enough. The start of the fight has a very clean tackle from the sidelines, and I like that. It shows Immortal actually is a fighter and not just some guy from the sidelines. He actually gets some pretty good punches in, like throughout the fight. Something I don't see spoken about enough is the fact that, well, he actually sent Omni Man tumbling through the air. Omni Man has the ability to displace atoms and stuff, like reposition himself in space, and we don't know if Omni Man was just holding back to make Immortal look like a bad guy, or if like he was genuinely getting hit by those punches, because he wasn't bleeding. It didn't look like, at least not from what. Oh, never mind. Yeah, I'm watching this clip again. He did bleed there. He actually punched Omni Man hard enough to draw blood, and you know, he at this point in the fight wasn't just completely sneaking Omni Man. Omni when Omni Man was genuinely tensed up, and people don't talk about the fact that he was actually getting some hits in here. And before you bring up the strength of another character, just remember, Mark and Omni Man are Viltrumites. They have smart atoms. They can displace themselves in space. It completely enhance their durability. Immortal is used to mostly biological threats that are at best really big and pretty strong. He's not used to people who can literally hit a nanomachine's son in real life. He literally is hitting the standing here. I realize meme, and people are acting like he's a fraud because he can't beat a Viltrumite warrior in hand to hand combat. Remember, Immortal is a human, a mutant, not a Viltrumite. While this absolute demolition of a fight, would be genuinely embarrassing for a Viltrumite character like Mark, Immortal is just a really durable human with flying powers. At best, he might be able to defeat a singular mid-tier Viltrumite. And something people don't point out is there are no mid-tier Viltrumites anymore because the Purge killed off anyone who wasn't the strongest, essentially. So, basically, the only people Immortal has gotten into a fight to my knowledge, is a guy who has atom manipulation, essentially, super durability greater than his, possibly thousands of years of combat experience. And while you might argue, so does Immortal, because he's literally immortal. He's been there since like humanity existed and stuff. Sure, but at the same time, that doesn't help very much if you've only dealt with Earth tier threats. Worst he's seen is a kaiju. Now he has to deal with a guy who can fly, hold their breath in outer space for a ridiculously long time, and basically negate any damage he puts on them. Because Viltrumites are just built like that, and Immortal is not. Something you all get wrong is comparing the two different species. That's like comparing your average Joe with a grizzly bear that has a workout routine. Don't be surprised when the man loses. Immortal is just a regular mutant, whereas he's dealing with a guy who has superpowers that are basically his, but at least 10 times more potent. Another thing is that Immortal doesn't have the extreme durability Omni Man does. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but he can't use that Viltrumite slice that we see Omni Man do to Immortal. It's physically impossible for his regular atoms to do, and people are comparing him, a mutant human, to a species that has the ability to manipulate their location in space. And honestly, it's sad. Let's talk about the experience gap. Omni Man experienced the Purge, which was quite literally basically just the Purge movie, but it's Viltrumites instead of humans. He survived essentially a lawless world for years against top tier Viltrumites like himself. Of course, he beats a random guy with superpowers. If anything, I'm gonna be honest, I think Immortal is probably better than Mark. Not because he's stronger than Mark, obviously he isn't, but when you think about the sheer willpower he needed to go after Mark, I mean, not Mark, Omni Man, while knowing he probably couldn't win, he was determined. Mark has the power to deal with a Viltrumite. You know what Immortal gets? He gets the ability to put his head back on. Okay, so he's just Ethan with flight powers then. I mean, Mark can barely beat Viltrumites while he's a Viltrumite, and Immortal nearly stood toe to toe with Omni Man whilst having no superpowers aside from human ones. All in all, the main problem here is that people are comparing human characters like Immortal, who's just a normal mutant, well, as normal as you get as a genetic anomaly. He's essentially a normal mutant, and you're comparing him to a species built to absolutely demolish empires via unnatural selection, via a literal purge of all the weak Viltrumites. They got wiped off the map. You know what Immortal had to go through? At best, maybe an extinction event that he would have survived anyway. I mean, Immortal's main power is being immortal. Like, he doesn't die of age. Or at least he doesn't seem like he's going to anytime soon. But that's not a very helpful trait against a species that's known for ripping apart things like... I don't... They can slice people in half with a karate chop. They turn a karate chop into a real chop. That's how cooked Immortal was. Anyway, remember, Immortal is not weak. Immortal is not a fraud. He's just vastly outclassed.